On the Talkback Show, on the radio, or whatever audiovisual device you choose to use, welcome to the GBC podcast, where we talk about the Packers and our hometown of Green Bay. This is episode 30, created November 24th, 2022. Yes, it is Thanksgiving Day. I'm John. I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin. Along with me, Jeff in Minneapolis. And Neil, this week, is actually hanging out in Wisconsin. So say hello, gentlemen, and tell us what you're drinking.
Hello, gentlemen. This afternoon, I'm not very festive. I'm having an Imperial Stout, Horror of the Shade.
And so I am actually in Green Bay right now. And being that I'm in Wisconsin, I thought I should go with the official Wisconsin thing, New Glarus, but I actually have a different New Glarus. I have a New Glarus totally naked, going back to our earliest days of entertainment, our origin story of entertainment for this group.
Nice. I did some shopping this morning. Limes were on sale, 3 for $1. So when I have fresh limes, I have margarita. So I have a margarita today. All right. You can find us on YouTube and Twitter at Green Bay Chat and Facebook at the GBC Podcast Green Bay Chat. And the audio, just the audio, is available through Spotify and Anchor by searching for Green Bay Chat. So some things that we're going to look at here is the Thursday Tennessee Tumble, we'll call it. It is Thanksgiving Day, and there's a great connection between the NFL and Thanksgiving, as well as the Packers on this day. We've got the Philadelphia Eagles coming up in Week 12, and we'll have our Packer history report as well. But let's talk about the Thursday night matchup. Neil, you were in Green Bay as well. You are home for deer hunting. You got to be in town for it. Jeff, you were doing a little bit of recovering. That's okay. We'll share sympathies with you later. But I wanted to throw a quick story in here because this was fun. So you guys know how I make friends everywhere, right?
No.
So
No.
this is me in my element, right?
Yes.
I get to Green Bay, and long story about how I had to get out of work early. I sneaked out of work early, and I got up to Green Bay, and I got a great parking spot because there's this house on True Lane that's under construction, and the painter had just left. So I got his parking spot like a block away from Kroll's and
Nice.
tailgate. So
Rockstar.
I get out and I get my stuff on, and I'm carrying a bag of gear and my 12-pack of Paps that I carry. And I start walking down Valley View, and I get to Ridge Road there, and you got to worry about that intersection. And as I'm crossing the street, 3 guys come walking from Ridge Road. They're early 20s. One guy is wearing a blue Tennessee Titans Steve McNair jersey. One guy is wearing a light blue Houston Oilers Earl Campbell jersey.
Nice.
And the other guy is wearing a green Packers Aaron Rodgers jersey, number 12. And I said, "Oh, hey, you guys first time to Green Bay?" Yeah. They said, "We just drove up from Tennessee." 3 guys that went to school together at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. They drove up from Chattanooga, had a hotel in Milwaukee, came up for the game. So, well, welcome to Green Bay. Enjoy the game, stay warm, all the, the niceties that I say to people on game day. And the kid in the Aaron Rodgers jersey, we'll call him Blake because that's his name. He says, "So you got any tips for us that what we should be doing for game time?" I said, "Follow me."
You know a guy. You are the guy.
I know a guy. And I walked him over. So we're right at the corner of Ridge Road and Valley View. And I walked him over and I said, "All right, see that big number 10 sign? Then the next lot is number 9. I said, "See those flags up there?" And Neil, you'll be happy to know the flags from our angle were right behind the porta potty. So it's like,
Nice.
Hey, see the shitters there? See the flag behind the shitters? Come on over here. I'll show you what we do." And I brought him over and I explained Scott's setup to him and the Grandma Lambos. And I said, "Here's what, this is the spot you want to be, but we're still setting up. Here's what I want you to do." And I gave him directions. I said, "Go over to Kroll's, get a burger with a pound of butter on it. Go over to Titletown, look at the sledding hill, the skating rink, get your pictures there. Go to the north side of the stadium, statues, Lambeau leap wall, work your way around." I got them all the way around. I said, "Come back in an hour. You'll have a great time." So they do that. An hour later, they show up. They had the biggest grins on their faces. They were loving it. So Blake and Zach and Carson just continue to hang out with us at our tailgate. I think part of it because I kept feeding them PBRs, and they were okay with that. Yeah, 23-year-old guys and free beer, they're going to have a good time.
Yeah.
So they had a good time. They did a couple of shot skis. They talked to my bartenders and everybody else coming through, and I tell you, they lived up the Lambeau Field experience. And here's where it gets great. They're worried about like what time they need to go in. And they said, John, how long do you guys run this party for? What time are you going into the game? I said, oh, I don't go in. I said, we're going to run this right up to kickoff. I don't go in. And they're like, well, you don't have a ticket. You're not going in, nothing. So no, we're going to do this all the way. And they go, well, we've got a fourth ticket. Our buddy who was going to go with us, he bailed on us. It's free. It's already paid for. You want to go with us? Okay.
Twist
So,
your arm.
Yeah, so I ended up in section 108, row 59 with my new Tennessee friends. And Blake follows us on Twitter. So hopefully he's got this one tuned in. So hi, Blake. Again, I had a great time. Hope you guys had a great trip. Neil, you got to meet him as well. And you know, we told him what life was like growing up in Green Bay. I threw little anecdotes into him every once in a while. Like, so Neil, you may remember this too. We were up in row 59. You remember that original bowl of Lambeau
That was
Field
the top row of the stadium, right?
was 60 rows, right?
Okay.
So I told him our friend Steve's favorite story of when he was a kid, that they would sit up at the top row and throw snowballs at the cars in the parking lot. Can't really do that anymore.
No.
But yeah, they
You need quite an arm to be able to do that, and you wouldn't be able to see the
and you wouldn't see it.
destruction.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to enjoy it. Yeah. So those guys had a great time. But Neil, you made your way over tailgating as well. That's our picture of the moment.
So I came into town. I arrived in Green Bay just a couple hours before game time. Met my uncle and cousins from California who were going to the Packers game, most of them going to the game for the first time. We went over to Badger State Brewery. There were a small number of Titans fans there, which was nice, but it was a good crowd at Badger State, as it always is. And then walked over to Lot 9 and hung out with John, but also with some of our other high school friends, Denise and Tim, who are pictured. And so as John has said, it's not a lie. The Lot 9 tailgate is a fun place to be, and it was a good crowd. And I managed to avoid photos with porta potties as well. So
It's the thing about it, Neil, is it's a good gathering spot. And I think as we continue to talk about it, and it always kind of has been, it's a place when people go to games, they know they're going to know someone there.
yeah,
and they can show up and they can say hi. And whether it's me or Scott or Justin or Chris or Matt or any of our other guys, we're there, we're regulars. And if you come by and you say, hey, you know, and I'll say, oh, I know someone else is here. You know, I can say this guy went this way, this guy went that way. So it's nice to have that pseudo gathering spot for little mini reunions as people come into town. Jeff will get you there one of these days.
Oh, absolutely. I will be there.
So other than getting ready for the game, there is the game itself. Neil, you got inside before I did, which is pretty par for the course, but they had the enhanced introductions. They implored the fans to be in by 7 p.m. for the 7:15 kickoff because they were doing some fancy shit. What was that fancy shit, Neil?
oh, they turned off.
Or was it more shit than fancy?
It was more shit than fancy. You know, they turned off the lights, and you know, they had flickering lights, and you know, they had a little bit more pyrotechnics than usual, a little bit more video thing. The players entered in the darkness, but you know, as far as NFL stadiums go, I'd still put it in the bottom half as far as the drama associated with the introductions. But that's fine. Lambeau is Lambeau, and it's good enough just as Lambeau.
The lights, though, did they give fans something to use for lights, or were people just putting the flashlights on their phones?
I think it's just, I didn't receive anything, so I think it was just people's phones.
Speaking of receiving something, though, I got a little can koozie on the way in. Did you get your Packers can koozie that looks like a little
Wow, John, I missed
Christmas sweater?
I missed all the good giveaways. No, I did not get.
Wow.
I was using it last night with my can of PBR, Neil. It was very nice. All right, enough of the accoutrements. What happened with that game, Neil?
Oh my word! I mean, you know, we come out of the Dallas game, right, and we're thinking, okay, we're 4-6. The NFC stinks. All we need to do is win this game, and it's Titans on the road for all the reasons that we thought were going to be good things. And then the Packers decided, well, we're going to play about 2 quarters of football, and we're going to stink the other 2 quarters. And that, in the end, was the story of the game. There were a lot of things that were positive. Quay Walker had an absolutely dominant game, starting from the first play from scrimmage, where he nailed Derrick Henry in the backfield. You know, had a number of really important plays, and yet the team overall did not do the things that he do. Christian Watson had 2 touchdowns, one of which was an absolutely spectacular catch. And yet what the Titans did in this game is they took their weakness and went against our strength, right? So good news. We kept Derrick Henry to 87 yards and 28 carries, 3.1 yards per attempt for Derrick Henry. That's really good against the best running back in the NFL, at least by yards. And then they took their number 31st rated passing attack, went against our number 3 rated passing defense, and absolutely tore us to pieces.
Dominated.
Overall, as far as their passing is concerned, 333 yards from Ryan Tannehill, 22-27. Ryan Tannehill just shredded our defense. And if that's not enough, Derrick Henry threw a touchdown pass as well. Now, that was a pretty spectacular play. We certainly weren't expecting it. It was very well designed, but overall, just a disaster as far as our pass defense was concerned. Overall, I don't know exactly how that worked. I rewatched the game, and fundamentally there were just a lot of plays in which their receivers were open and they were able to get a lot of yards on them. There was one where Derrick Henry just had a lot of yards after the catch due to poor tackling, but there's something wrong as far as our scheme on defense, and that is what hurt us. Although in the end, when the game was on the line, our defense actually did the things that it needed to do. In the fourth quarter, when we had fallen down 10 points on 3 consecutive drives, our defense stopped them. We had the Rasul Douglas interception. We had a Barnes hit behind the line of scrimmage that knocked Ryan Tannehill 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And then a 3-and-out due to a Preston Smith sack. 3 straight drives in the fourth quarter. Our defense performed at the highest level that we could expect them to perform. And our offense decided the fourth quarter is when they just didn't want to play at all. I'll go through the statistics in a bit.
Oh, you want to go through the misery of the missed opportunities? Is that what you want to
go ahead and talk, and I'll get back to some of the statistics.
Yeah, well, Jeff, so you were watching it on TV. I mean,
yeah.
When was the last time we were able to say in a game where we were behind and had a chance here that the defense kept us in the game? The defense kept giving us the chances that we needed to get into the game to potentially pull ahead. But those missed opportunities, as Neil was alluding to in the fourth quarter, yikes, what happened?
Well, it was a combination. One of the things, yes, the defense held Derrick Henry, but it was the third down passing of Ryan Tannehill. That was just, you'd think, okay, another third down. And I think out of the 21 first downs that they had, 5 were by rushing, even with half the number of plays they ran were rushes. Like I said, our defense did great. It was like the 6-yard completions on third down every single time. That's the part that was just not so great. But then the offense. And oh, by the way, you might have heard this by now, Aaron Rodgers has a broken thumb. Oh, yeah, no shit. Because, duh. So now it comes out, but yeah, and that clearly was affecting him. The cold, whatever at that point. Some of those throws just in general, it was just, it wasn't pretty to watch. It was frustrating. It wasn't that they were manufacturing a way to lose in this case. It was, they couldn't, where somehow in the Dallas game, they turned it on. They're like, oh, okay, now we can play. And Aaron Rodgers made his throws and everything kind of fell into place and fantastic. None of that happened Thursday night. And it's just, we've seen it so many times where they can kind of just almost flip the switch on and off. Yeah. The switch was broken, folks. Thursday night.
The thing with Rodgers, though, is we've been saying since the New England game, that week 4 matchup, that he's been off.
Oh yeah.
I had mentioned being in the stadium that day, and that was before the thumb injury.
Right. Yeah.
So the broken thumb, notwithstanding, he's just not there. Neil, you were in the stadium now. You got to see it. Did you feel that? Could you just? He doesn't look right.
There were just throws that missed, right? And it's the number of throws that were missed, right? Where Christian Watson has to turn the wrong direction and therefore he falls down instead of being able to turn a catch and do a long gain. And there's a similar one to Aaron Jones, where essentially, he moved out of the way in order to get it and got no yards instead of getting something that could have been 10 or 15 yards. There was a completely missed pass to Alan Lazard on a third down that should have been a completion. Yeah. I counted 4 really bad misses by Aaron Rodgers, where the receiver was wide open and Aaron Rodgers just missed the receiver in the game. And those are plays that all would have been first downs. They could have been a couple of them were going to be very big plays. And Aaron Rodgers missing the receiver was a big thing. And there was some pressure, but that I wasn't counting the situation where he was under pressure. These are just bad throws by Aaron Rodgers. And yeah, there's something about where there, even some of the completions, right? That, you have to duck out of the way in the wrong direction. I mean, it's all of those things that are contributing to the offense not moving as well as it should have been moving.
It's on Rodgers. I know that I think early in the season we wanted to talk about young receivers not running the right routes, not being able to get open, but I really feel, especially with this game, that it is on Rodgers. I think a lot of those passes, and then even when he's successful, it doesn't look as crisp. And the play that I'm thinking of specifically is the first touchdown to Christian Watson, the free play. It's an offsides. Rodgers knows he has this free play to work with. And he did a good job of like getting out of the pocket, directing guys around, but then he still looked like he had this panic on him, like as if he almost forgot what color uniform his teammates were wearing. And threw up this prayer. Unfortunately, Watson had a foot tall advantage on the defender, and it was a high pass and made the catch. That was all Christian Watson on that first touchdown. And then add to it, Watson now, let's Jeff, I'm going to pick on you again. Christian Watson.
Okay, he's not a bust. He's doing pretty well.
Five touchdowns in 4 days is pretty good, right?
Yeah. Not so bad. Give him a pass on this one.
He did all right.
No, it's nice to see that happening, but you're right. That was, Watson didn't have any drops in this game, but yeah, I mean, it's the receivers are almost adjusting to the ball. Not that Rodgers is throwing them open, and that's happened for years and years. The back shoulder throws, whatever. Now it's like the receivers are reacting to this. Oh my God, where is this going to be? And you're right. Whereas it's nullifying or certainly shortening potentially longer or bigger plays, because I find it hard to believe that every single receiver is like slightly in the wrong position,
right,
or is misplaying, right? So, I mean, at some point, like I said earlier in the season, you think, okay, maybe not everybody's on the same page or, whatever. But why would this happen? I mean, here's a guy who's been playing forever, right? And like can do this in his sleep. And now all of a sudden, it's like a professional golfer with the yips, or I don't know.
Yeah, it's the yips. It's just going into, for comparing it to baseball, it's going into a slump. Something has happened. And it's a funk.
Yeah.
He's got to get out of it. If there's a slump buster that he's got to get on, he's got to do it. He's got to take that to help the team.
Yeah, I mean, the Dallas game, he kind of emerged a little bit, because let's face it, some of those throws were amazing. Okay, all right, kind of feeling it. He
had some amazing throws in this game too. I going back and rewatching, it's like you remember all the bad ones, but there's some really big plays that he made where he was Aaron Rodgers on those plays, and so it's not like he's forgotten about it.
Sideline. Yeah,
it's not like he's forgotten. It's just that it's intermittent.
It's not consistent at all.
Well, at one point on the jumbotron, the Christian Watson statistics came up: 2 catches, 22 yards, 2 touchdowns, with an 11-yard average. What they put
really
to make the math easy. But Neil, I know you've got those big, beautiful statistics you want to read to us, right?
Okay, so before we get into the offensive statistics, so I do want to say that we were, I think, kinder than we needed to be as far as the defense is concerned. Tennessee scored 27 points. That is their season high as far as points on the year. And they also had 408 yards, also a season high for Tennessee. Yeah. So Tennessee feasted on our defense, and we did well in spurts. But overall, they controlled our defense. And obviously, we talked about the pass defending that was particularly bad. Overall, they outgained us 408 yards to 271 yards. That is not going to get the job done, despite the fact that we won the turnover battle 1-0. Before we get to Aaron Rodgers, let's talk about a running game, though, because that didn't work the way that it was supposed to. Certainly they do have a stout defense against the run. But if you consider Jones and Dillon combined, 19 rushes, 56 yards, a 2.9 yard per attempt average as far as our rushing game is concerned. AJ Dillon was 6 for 13. Dillon was particularly bad. And I think we've gotten to the point that we need to worry about where AJ Dillon is. And there have been articles written about this as well. He's not the player that he was last year. And what has changed? And it wasn't all the line. I mean, I mentioned previously, when we've seen Aaron Jones have big games, a lot of it has been Aaron Jones making a lot of yards out of nothing. And he had a couple of runs like that, but fundamentally there is an issue as far as the line is concerned. But AJ Dillon should be able to pound the ball in those situations where we've got a 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. And we had a couple of times where we had passing on those 3rd and short, just as we did in previous weeks this year. The other group that needs to not be let off the hook are the asshats. So remind you, in the first quarter, Tennessee scores on their first drive. We have a 3 and out because we started the 12-yard line because of an asshats holding penalty. We then force a 3 and out by Tennessee. We go down, drive for the touchdown to end the first quarter. Beautiful touchdown pass to Watson, and then have a blocked extra point. And that's really where the game turned from one that looked really good for the Packers to one that, oh shit, we're dealing with this again. And it was blocked right down the center, right? Essentially the guy right up the middle blocked it. And I don't know how that happens on an extra point. But end of the first quarter, it should have been 7-7. And then the game became more skewed in the other direction. There's something wrong with our rushing game, and I don't know exactly what to do with that. Rodgers overall, 24 of 39, 227 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 1 sack. So 215 net yards passing on 40 dropbacks. That is not good.
That's Bears-like almost.
Yeah, let's not go that far. They'd have 120 yards.
Okay,
but if you break down the Aaron Rodgers game, I mean, what's disturbing is how it was really cyclic as far as the game is concerned. So in the first quarter, he was 6 of 7, 61 yards and that touchdown, 142.6 passer rating. Then you get into the second quarter, 2 of 4 for 13 yards.
Ouch.
So at halftime, he only had 74 yards passing on 8 and 11. Third quarter, again, Aaron Rodgers had a really good quarter, 8 of 12, 93 yards and a touchdown. He had 167 yards total here at that point. But fundamentally a really good quarter as far as the offense is concerned. But then we had the fourth quarter. He was 8 of 16 for 60 yards in the fourth quarter, including a 12-yard sack, a net of 48 yards passing on 17 dropbacks in the fourth quarter, 2.8 yards per attempt in the fourth quarter. And that's actually, there's a little bit of grade inflation there, because on his last drive, when Tennessee essentially was giving us everything underneath we wanted, he was 6 of 8 for 49 yards. You take the 3 prior drives, and it was those 3 prior drives where we went 3 and out, 3 and out, and 4 and out. Aaron Rodgers was 2 for 8 for 11 yards on those 3 key drives in the fourth quarter. And that's the story of the game in the end, is that you get to the fourth quarter and our defense did the things that they needed to give us as many opportunities as we could get. Tennessee had a 27-17 lead. We go 3 and out, including a long incompletion and a deep incompletion on third down. Tennessee gets the ball back. They throw the interception to Rasul Douglas. We get the ball back, 3 and out, starting with the Josh Neiman holding penalty and 2 incompletions.
Only one of the game on the offensive line.
Yeah. And Aaron Rodgers on third down missed a wide open Sammy Watkins that would have been a first down. So we go 3 and out. Tennessee throws the Rasul interception, 3 and out. We force another 3 and out, in part by the Barnes hit on Tannehill. We get the ball and we get 4 yards going out on downs. Again, 2 incompletions on third and fourth down by Rodgers. Third down, he misses a wide open Allen Lazard. On fourth down, when there is space available short that he could have thrown to Jones for the first down, he threw it long down the left sideline. And that was fundamentally the game. We did force another 3 and out for Tennessee. By the time we get the ball back with 5 minutes left, though, they just gave it the space. We dinked and dunked our way down, and eventually went out on downs, 37 yards on 10 plays. I don't know. The 4-minute offense sounds like it should be more than 10 plays for 37 yards. The fourth quarter was an absolute disaster as far as our offense is concerned, despite it being the best quarter of the game as far as our defense.
Wow. So the other, I'll add this too, that it seemed like, okay, this is a short week. All right. So the players are, presumably very tired, right? I mean, it was an emotional win against Dallas, but you've got Tennessee, a warm weather or warmish weather team, coming up, also short week for them. They just seemed prepared to play. Vrabel had called some of these gadget plays, some of these, whatever plays. This was kind of, I want to say their Super Bowl, because it wasn't, because they're totally in the thick of the playoffs in the AFC, but they really played like this was an important game. Packers didn't play like that, right? I mean, they just they weren't sleepwalking through it, but there was no creativity. The execution was shitty, but it just kind of seemed like, and it wasn't because they were tired, because look what, the defense,
Right.
They were on the field a lot too, right? I mean, and they still, put together the opportunities for the offense, but it was just like, oh, okay, we're kind of back out here, it just, where is the sense of urgency? Is this a coaching thing? Is this a player thing? Is this a combination thereof? I mean, I'm not saying, fire Matt LaFleur by any means, but I'm just, what is the catalyst that's going to light a fire under these guys?
That's a good question. I mean, statistically, we can run through all this stuff. We can pick apart the games, and we can see after the fact what isn't working. We need to figure out what what has to be done to work. We thought committing to the run would do it, and it has helped, but then you run into a game like Tennessee where you saw that they were committing to the run, but you just weren't getting the yards you needed.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, Jeff, that it just looked like Tennessee had a sense of purpose as far as the game was concerned, and we didn't have that sense of purpose. And I think that it at home, when it's a really desperate portion of the season.
Yeah.
And when I was in the stadium though, and I rewatched this, and because I like to do this, but fundamentally, I was offended at the time by what we did at the end of the first half when Tennessee had the ball, and we used all three of our timeouts to essentially give them as much time as they wanted to score that touchdown. And then we get the ball back with 32 seconds left. And it's like, but we're, even when we got the ball back, we're screwing around. We threw a bunch of short passes. Like, well, just kneel down if you're going to do that. I mean, I just don't understand this whole, let's just try to get a little bit of possession and move the ball a little bit. You weren't going to move the ball enough the way they were throwing that it was going to actually lead to any point. So just take a knee. And that's sort of like it was, late in the fourth quarter when, 5 minutes left, and we had that 10-play drive that got 37 yards. I mean, that to me is coaching, right? The calling of those timeouts, the way that they managed the game was really poor during those segments.
So one other thing, Neil, that you just brought up. So at the game, I know we talked about this a little bit before we went on, but so what was, I'm watching at home, the crowd, kind of seemed into it, they were loud at times or whatever, but with both of you actually being there, what were your impressions? I mean, were the fans kind of like, were people into it?
Going into the game, I was afraid that the bowl was going to be half full because it was
it was a Milwaukee game, as you had discussed.
It was a Milwaukee game on a Thursday night on a cold night. So there were a lot of people that didn't want to make the drive up. But the secondary market value on those tickets, there were a lot of tickets, not just under $100. Like you could get club seats under $100, and you could get into the bowl for under $50 on Thursday. And my fear was that there just weren't going to be that many people showing up. Fortunately, once inside, it didn't look like that. It was a full stadium. One of the things that, they like to get the fans to make noise when we're on defense, but I always get a kick out of us trying to clap when we're all wearing the warm gloves. It goes from the loud clapping to the thudding, which is a little bit different there. I mean, crowd-wise, I would say we were into it. There certainly were some blue jerseys, but not as much as the Dallas game. All in all, it was a good crowd, just because I think the night game, there's always something electric about the night games that just feels different than when the sun is up.
Yeah, I thought the crowd was actually really good for most of the game. So I took advantage of the secondary market. This was a gold package game. My parents do not have gold package tickets. So I got very lovely seats on the 35-yard line, which are very different from my seats in the end zone. And so, and for a perfectly reasonable price. So I was very happy. And I think there were a lot of people that took advantage. It wasn't after the Dallas game, I think that helped the mood of Packers fans substantially. And I thought the crowd was really good at the beginning of the game. And even getting into the second half when we had the opportunities. On the other hand, there were some boos in the fourth quarter when we just didn't take care of the opportunities. And that was something that was not what you expect to hear at Lambeau, but it was fully deserved it wasn't like a chorus of boos, but there were definitely boos from throughout the stadium in the fourth quarter.
Pre-game too. I think the crowd was a bit better. Tailgating crowd was a bit better than I expected it to be. I expected a late crowd, but people in the area came in time, and there was a good air of positivity. I mean, everybody was still working off of that Dallas win. and the Titans fans that I talked to, by no means did they feel like this was going to be a cakewalk for them.
I watched a little of the pregame on Amazon Prime on Thursday nights, and I normally don't watch it. I was kind of like you said, recovering. Just I think I'll watch this, and it was all Packers. I mean, it was like the whole. I'm like, okay, this is a huge skew towards the Packers. I'm like, oh, by the way, are they actually playing somebody here? I mean, it was really like a Packer documentary, because they had interviewed fans. It was a Dallas game. It's kind of, is the Pack back? Are they? Is this going to be a catalyst? There was a lot of positive energy. There was a lot of optimism as well. And again, what happened to this? Feeding off the crowd at home. I could even see if they were on the road, short week, they kind of come out with a clunker like that. This was, this is why they play at Lambeau Field, right? This is the mystique. This is and bottom line is that Tennessee just was more prepared.
The crowd brought it. Even the in-game, who do I want to call it? Whoever's running the music and the montages, behind the scenes in the stadium. The stadium.
And Bill Jart's getting everybody fired up.
Bill does a good job. Whoever runs the music, the lights, the things like that. The idea of the pregame show, Neil. I think that feeling of let's keep the crowd into this to help the team feed off of it. We're doing our job. We do our job.
Yeah.
We haven't lost a tailgate yet. And we really want the team to carry that over. Neil, I got one more statistic for you, just because you're into self-immolation. Jamal Williams, remember him? Jamal Williams was drafted by the Green Bay Packers ahead of Aaron Jones when we talk about the running game. So in his first 5 NFL seasons, Jamal Williams had 13 rushing touchdowns. And before today's Thanksgiving Day game with the Bills, he has 12 rushing touchdowns this season alone. So Jamal Williams is coming alive this season in Detroit, which is probably a good credit to the Lions and what they're doing. But why aren't we getting our running game going like we should? That's the big question.
So it all comes back to this question of consistency that is our overall recurring theme as far as the season, or the lack of consistency, right? And in the end, why did the Packers lose that game? Well, you have 6 different possessions that are either 3 and out or 4 and out. It's really tough to win a football game in the NFL. You've got to basically do everything else on those small number of remaining possessions. And you're making your life difficult.
And with that said, while we're still trying to figure out our running game, the Lions Thanksgiving Day game has ended. Jamal Williams picks up another rushing touchdown and has 13 on the season. The other thing, Neil, we had a big halftime presentation. One of your favorite players, Leroy Butler, and he even recreated a Lambeau leap in the same spot of the original Lambeau leap as part of the halftime presentation. How exciting was that?
It was really cool. I mean, just, Butler was there, and he was just all big smiles, as Leroy Butler is, and he's got his bust from Canton next to him, and Mark Murphy presents, and then he gives his speech, and I don't really remember anything about the speech. It's just like, wow, it's great to be honoring Leroy Butler. And then at the end, he's walking back towards the tunnel, and you can hear all the fans around yelling, "Do the leap, do the leap, do the leap." And sure enough, he goes right into the crowd with the Lambeau leap. Just a perfect way of ending the halftime ceremony.
Well, I believe that speech was about family, his family, the Packer family, being Thanksgiving Day. We can be thankful for our families, and even talking about, how the crowd was on Thursday. I think I want to just say what I'm thankful for as far as a Packer fan goes. I'm just thankful that this small town has this team. I think growing up in Green Bay, you guys will agree, we've talked about it before, was something special. It was just neat, no matter how bad they were. It was neat having a professional football team. It was great when we became a winning team in the 90s. The last 30 years have been awesome. And now as adults, we get to enjoy it. But something about the NFL and Thanksgiving. We'll talk about the Packers in their history on Thanksgiving Day. But I think that the big, I don't know how to put this, going back to the Carlin routine, baseball versus football, right? Baseball has always been the pastime, national pastime. Baseball was summer. Baseball's got the 4th of July. Baseball was a good family thing to do.
It's in a park.
In a park, right? It was nice. It was nice.
Yes.
But Thanksgiving Day is a family day. And as kids growing up, we watched football with our dads and our uncles and our family members, and a big meal on Thanksgiving Day. And we continue to do that into adulthood as well. There's 3 games on today. Jeff, we're keeping a side eye on these games as we're doing this right now. The NFL has done a great job of marrying itself to Thanksgiving. John Madden was huge for that. They just did the turducken ceremony for the Bills and the Lions game. You know, I mean, Jeff, you want to snatch a big leg off of that turducken, don't you?
You know, 30 years ago, nobody knew what the hell a turducken was, right? I mean, it wasn't a thing. No, and that you're right. And I think, you know, the Thanksgiving Day games, I mean, go back pretty much to the beginning of the NFL. But from a marketing standpoint and from I mean, back in the day when we were growing up, you know, there was maybe 2 TVs in the house, but there was 25-inch, you know.
You had a 25, we were only at 19, so.
Wow. Well, we know. But it was in a big wooden box.
Yeah, the big console on the floor. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. You know, generally no remote or anything. You get the knobs on that thing, and so so but that was a kind of a rite of passage or tradition where you have your meal, and then, you know, at that time there was only 2 games on. There was the early game, which again always features Detroit, and then the mid-afternoon game, which is coming up here in a few minutes. And so there was no, you know, Sunday or Thursday night games or anything of the sort. But yes, that was still about family. It was about tradition. It was about, this is how things worked. A guy by the name of John Madden comes along, and this is his shtick, right? I mean, this is like Thanksgiving, food, football, and John Madden. You know, that's it, right? So I'm glad the NFL is acknowledging that. And, you know, as he passed last year, the day after Christmas, so now, you know, honoring him with the Thanksgiving Day games, and it couldn't, I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? I mean, like, well, of course you are, right? You have to do this for Madden. And so, yeah, the turducken and just all of the good times, and just the family, and the fun that, you know, and the memories that invokes, that I think that's great. And the NFL has done a great job of, capitalizing on that, and certainly moving that forward.
Well, that's the other thing, though, about football and Thanksgiving, is that if you have a big family gathering, you had the Thanksgiving Day game with your family. Like, it'd be halftime of the regular game, or you'd be between games, and you go to have a big family football game. And those are certainly very fond memories of going out and making sure that whatever team I was on beats my brother's team, and you know, trying, but all of the different elements of the family football game. I mean, that is a Thanksgiving Day tradition, and it builds on the fact that you're already watching football. It essentially sets everything up such that it's family, it's food, and it's football, and it's all 3 of those things.
So it's been a while since the Packers, though, have played on Thanksgiving Day. The last time was in 2015, and that was the Thursday night matchup with Chicago. Now, there was a time, 1951 and 1963, it was Packers at Lions, and also later than that, a lot of great Packers Lions matchups. Maybe we'll talk about that Packers Cowboys game in 1994, but that 2015 game, Neil, you were there. The last time Green Bay played on Thanksgiving was in Green Bay. It was a Thursday night matchup, Packers Bears. It was a huge night. What were we celebrating that night 7 years ago?
We were celebrating the retirement of Brett Favre's number 4 with the Packers. So the unveiling of his number within the list of the other retired Packers numbers. My cousin Chris was there. We had a big gathering of people. Everyone was excited because we're playing the Bears. We're playing Thursday night football. We're playing on Thanksgiving, and we are playing to celebrate Brett Favre. And the Packers absolutely laid an egg during that football game, and it was a very disappointing end to the game. It's something that at halftime was a really glorious experience.
So the number 4 went up in the north end zone, but that's also before the Hall of Fame, though. That's before the Ring of Honor as well. So there's one other time where Favre makes his way to Green Bay as well. So yeah, we like celebrating Brett. He's done a few things for us. The history, though, the Packers on Thanksgiving Day, Jeff, 14, 20, and 2, and 9 of those 14 were, what did we say, before 1936?
Yeah, that was. They haven't been awful. And again, they're playing Detroit. Now, obviously Detroit, you know, back in the 40s and 50s was, you know, they were a pretty solid team, but Wow. Yeah. The vast majority of those games are, were against Detroit, couple against the aforementioned Cowboys, again, one against the Bears, and Chicago Cardinals, the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets. The Packers
now that's an appropriate game for this week, but
yeah.
The Frankfurt Yellow Jackets becoming the Philadelphia Eagles.
There we go. Yeah, I mean the Brooklyn Dodgers. I mean, so there's they played a lot of different teams historically on Thanksgiving, but just that losing record is that's not very good.
What was our longest losing streak?
It looks like it was 5 years in a row from 51 through 55. Then they beat the Lions in 56, lost in 57, lost in 58, won in 59, lost in 60, won in 61, lost in 62, and tied in 63. And then they were done for a few years.
But thankfully that tradition ended.
Even in our lifetime, I think there's only 4 or 5 Packer victories on Thanksgiving Day. And then there's the ugly one, like I said, in 1994, going down to Dallas. This is when Green Bay is on the rise, and at the time in the early 90s, the two teams that we kept having to gun for were the San Francisco 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys.
Yep.
And 1994 going to Dallas on Thanksgiving, and their first and second string quarterbacks are out, and some jackass named Jason Garrett is going to be their starting quarterback, and the Reggie White led defense they were going to feast on Jason Garrett that day, and it did not happen. And that's one of those things that it's such a sour taste from that day. I was living in Colorado at the time too, and just watching it with a friend that I knew, got to know there. He invited me over with his family because I was on my own, and they knew I was a Packers fan, and they said, oh, okay, well, we'll root for the Packers with you. And we were all into this game, and it was so miserable watching Jason Garrett just kind of have his career game that day.
So since 1970, the Packers have played 11 times during Thanksgiving or on Thanksgiving. They are 5-6.
It's better than you'd expect, actually, just based on the bad memories that have been just lodged in our brain.
Yeah.
So every time the Packers beat the Cowboys is as far as I'm concerned, personal retribution for that Thanksgiving Day game. I don't worry about the championship games and things like that. It's that Thanksgiving Day game. Every time we can beat Dallas, like we did last week. All right, that's getting back for Thanksgiving 1994. And speaking of Reggie White, and we did have Reggie White as our Packer player of the past already, and our great connection with the Philadelphia Eagles through Reggie White. It is week 12. Green Bay is traveling to Philadelphia, and the vaunted Eagles, they are playing well this season, Neil. But you've said it before, the Vikings fans are terrible fans, but those Philly fans are terrible people. How terrible are those people going to be this week?
Philly fans are at their worst when they're happy. I'm just convinced that that somehow success actually leads to greater misery as far as Philadelphia fans. And so I should note that I've got a number of very good friends who are Philadelphia fans. So they're not all evil, but certainly the game experience in Philadelphia is the worst. And actually, back from when my son was little, every time that I would approach Lincoln Financial Field or Citizens Bank Park, the stadium district within Philadelphia, I would always, start out in Lincoln Financial Field. You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious. And that is absolutely true.
So speaking of that, are you going?
I have not yet decided. The ticket prices keep falling. I mean, I sort of gave up on going to the game after the Packers lost to Tennessee. I'd been planning to go all year. So I live in metropolitan Philadelphia. And so fundamentally it was a situation where, of course I'm going to go to the Packers in Philadelphia. I almost always go to the games. I was at the 4th and 26 game. I've had a number of other Packers losses. I've seen the Packers win in Lincoln Financial Field as well. So it's not a complete disaster, but the Packers losing sort of combined with how miserable the Philadelphia fans are, the Philadelphia fan experiences, was discouraging me. But now the ticket prices are trending down, and I still may make the decision to go there, and we'll certainly have a game report. But you definitely have to be on your you need to have a sense of alertness when you go to the stadium, because the fan, there's just a subset of the fan base that is just eternally miserable. And it's, I don't know why they have to be like that. It's the opposite of going to Buffalo, but let's just say fuck Philly and spell that first word Phuck.
Well, Neil, if I could just recommend a full day of misery for yourself and punching yourself in the nuts, you could pull off the 2 NFL games in one day. You could go to the home Commanders game early, the 1 p.m. matchup in DC, and still get up to Philadelphia in time for the Eagles-Packers matchup. You can visit probably 2 of your least favorite stadiums in the NFL.
I'm going to pass on that.
Well, and he's already been, remember, to FedEx Field earlier, so.
But to say, Neil, you did 2 games in one day. Come on, it's worth it.
I've done it. I've done it in baseball, and that's good enough.
All right. How are the Packers going to look with the Philadelphia Eagles this week? What I think our sense of optimism after Dallas
bar is pretty low, isn't it?
Where are we going to go? The Eagles just now picking up our favorite nemesis, Ndamukong Suh, to bolster that already strong defensive line that they have. Fletcher Cox, just when you think that he's, going to roll out in a wheelchair or something, and he suddenly becomes all world whenever he sees the Packer yellow helmets on the other side of the sideline. Is that defensive line from Philadelphia going to dominate against us?
Well, the problem with Philadelphia is that they don't have a lot of weaknesses as far as the team is concerned, right? So starting out with Jalen Hurts, right? He has been my surprise of the entire season. I very famously mocked him in our preseason prediction. And Jalen Hurts is now at 8.3 yards per attempt passing. Overall, as far as QBR, this advanced metric for quarterbacking, he's ranked 5th in the NFL by QBR. Aaron Rodgers is ranked 26th by QBR.
No shit. Oh 26. My God.
By the more quarterback-friendly quarterback rating.
Wow.
Jalen Hurts is still ranked 4th. Aaron Rodgers is 11th by the standard quarterback rating, but standard quarterback rating sort of overemphasizes certain elements and does not take context into account. And so I think the QBR really, the fact that Hurts is 5th and Rodgers is 26th, that says everything about where the season is. On top of the fact that they've got a really good running game. They've got Miles Sanders, who's 9th in the NFL as far as rushing yards at 757. And then Jalen Hurts is actually 35th in the NFL as far as rushing yards are concerned. Oh. And then they've got a triple threat as far as the receivers. They've got 3 receivers who are in the top 30 as far as receiving yards, with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. So they've got all of the possible weapons on offense as far as moving the ball down. Not surprisingly, they are ranked 5th overall in offense as far as 371 yards per game. 6th in the NFL in rushing yards per game, 12th in passing yards per game. But part of that is they've got passing yards per game that count as passing yards. But a lot of times it's Jalen Hurts running the ball on a passing play that ends up getting them yards. So I think that understates the quality of their game. And they're 4th in the NFL as far as points per game. By DVOA, they're actually even better. They're ranked 4th in the NFL by DVOA, 3rd in the NFL as far as offense by DVOA. And you get into the defense that John was talking about, and they're a really stout defense too. I mean, there's a reason why this team is 9-1. You don't get to be 9-1 by being a bunch of schmucks. And so defensive yards per game, they're 2nd in the NFL in defensive yards per game. They're 2nd in the NFL in passing yards allowed per game. Our big opportunity is they are 19th in the NFL as far as rushing yards per game. So if we are going to win, the statistics would suggest that pounding the ball and going back to pounding the ball is what we're going to have to do. Now, having said that, their defense overall is still 4th by DVOA. I guess one other weakness, their special teams are 24th by DVOA. That's better than our 29th, but they've got their share of asshats too. And so I guess that we need a few balls to bounce correctly. We need to make sure our running game is doing the job. Aaron Rodgers will hopefully be a little bit sharper with a couple extra days of rest, but that's where our opportunities lie, because it certainly looks tight. But by the same token, Philadelphia needed to come back to beat the Colts last week. And so they're not an invincible team. They are a young team that is still figuring things out. And that youngness of at some key positions is the other opportunity that we would have.
Well, the luster certainly has worn off with the Eagles with their great start. And then, taking a loss to the Commanders. And then, like you said, barely coming away with a victory against the Colts. they, they're not invincible, and they certainly over the last 2 weeks have shown that. And I think that they probably have a little bit of concern, and they're not going to look at this game as a cakewalk. That's for sure.
I think overall, though, as we were kind of chatting last week too, is there a good team in the NFC? so that being said, yeah, Philly obviously is on a very short list of good teams, and they only have one loss. I think it's going to be something where, maybe the Packers will come in, throw a couple punches, whatever. But I think, for a Sunday night national game, I think NBC's probably like, oh shit, we should have done better than this.
Well, on paper, though, it's, originally you said, "Oh, Eagles Packers, this will be
oh,
good."
totally, yeah,
And especially the way the Eagles started out the season.
I mean, they definitely want the Eagles on there, and the Packers always draw well, but it's not the cachet that preseason or whatever. This matchup of what many thought were probably two of the contenders to come out of the NFC for the Super Bowl. So, but that being said, is it going to be kind of a replay of Buffalo where they'll play? Well, the Packers will be good enough, not embarrass themselves. Will they come out, pull something out of their ass? Again, they've had a couple more days to prepare, but they've got a ton of injuries and kind of illnesses. There was the report that was released yesterday was like a freaking MASH unit again. So it's just like, okay, how many healthy bodies are they going to have? Are they going to be able to run the ball with still a patchwork offensive line? But getting back to what we were talking about before, is there a will to win on the road on a Sunday night, right, against a really good team? So are they going to come in and say, all right, fuck it, we're going to do all kinds of crazy trick plays. We'll do a Sean Payton onside kick. We're just going to do all kinds of crazy shit. Or are we just going to kind of keep it vanilla? And if we don't execute, we're going to get our ass handed to us.
Crazy play, like let our running back at the 1 yard line, instead of powering it in, do a Tim Tebow style jump pass.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do a jump pass. Yeah. I mean, that, to Neil's point before, that was pretty damn impressive. I mean, who expected Derrick Henry is going to throw a pass right at the 1 yard line?
Yeah, especially
Nobody.
after running into his line, right? I mean, that's the crazy part about the whole pass.
Yeah.
But the thing about that, Neil, you had a different angle. I was looking straight down that goal line, and as he's running into the line, I'm like, oh, good, we stopped him. He ran into the goal line, and then my brain's going, no, you idiot, that's pass blocking. He threw the ball. I was like, oh, come on.
Yeah, exactly. That goofy little jump pass. But again, the point is that what are we going to see from the Packers? Are we going to show some fight? Are we going to show something? Are we going to show some life, some creativity, some, oh my God, that was a cool play? Or, oh Christ, here we go again.
If the season has shown anything, Jeff, we're going to get both.
Yeah. Fair enough. And probably, yeah.
So I guess one good thing working in our favor, in addition, is that since we're going to be on the road, we're not going to have Matt LaFleur floater spending so much time cheering the crowd on and trying to get the crowd to make noise, which is a pet peeve of mine. He can focus on actually the game at hand. So
coaching the fucking game. Yeah, that would be a plus.
Well, just as Green Bay was in the all white color rush, we tried the white out on Thursday night. Philadelphia is going all black, not only all black, but black shells as well. They've got black helmets for this Sunday night game. They're really going to try to make something happen on Sunday night here. Maybe a white helmet would have helped, like the Bengals have a white helmet. But a few of the fans that I talked to, Jeff, on Thursday night said that they're ready for Green Bay to take on an all black look as well. Black pant, black jersey, black shell. I don't know if I'm there for that. We'll see how it works for Philadelphia. But this white jersey, this white uniform at home, even precedes the color rush years. Jeff, you've got our bedtime story. Yeah.
So in researching this, I was really surprised. There's quite a bit of history, not only with the Packers, wearing whites at home, but the oxymoron that is color rush. So I'll get to that in a little bit here. So Packers white uniforms at home. So until 1957, NFL teams could wear whatever jersey they wanted to. It didn't matter if they were on the road or at home or whatever. And so, I thought, okay, that's kind of weird. Why is that? So starting in the 1957 season, all teams were required to have both a color jersey as well as a white jersey. Colored jerseys that were made for home and white jerseys for away. So this was due to an emerging medium, maybe you've heard of it, called television, specifically black and white. But black and white TV didn't contrast colors. So if you had two dark uniforms, you couldn't tell who the hell is who. So that's why there's the advent starting in 1957 of the white road jersey, because then, you could see on a black and white TV who was who. Now we have the color rush. So Nike replaced Reebok as the uniform supplier to the NFL in 2012. And this led to an expectation beginning in 2016 that all teams would participate in something called the color rush. And these were kind of a special uniform that was very colorful for specifically for Thursday night games. So some teams really embraced the uniforms, others did not. First, when this first came about in 2016, when they actually there were kind of an option in 2015, some teams really embraced it. So the first thing to overcome was players and fans who were colorblind. So that was a problem. There was a game played early in 2016 that included the Bills. It was the Bills and the Jets, where it was like, if you were colorblind, you couldn't tell who was who. So that was a problem. Then there were teams such as the Packers that, ironically, instead of doing a color rush jersey, they chose all white for their color rush. Now, they were not the only ones. The Giants, and there was a few other teams that only decided to do white versus this color rush. That brings us to Thursday night's game against the Titans. This was just the 6th time in Packers history that white was worn at home. So it started out, again, pre-color rush, as John mentioned, twice in 1989. The first 2 home games, interestingly enough, against the Buccaneers and the Saints. And the thought by the coaching staff in 1989 was, it's going to be warm, and therefore the whites are going to keep us cool. Well, it's September in Wisconsin, so you're not really dealing with extreme temperatures. So the first game against the Buccaneers, where they wore the whites, they lost. And the second game was against the Saints, and whether it was the white unis or not, the Packers had a huge comeback and ended up winning that game against the Saints in 1989. So then, upon the advent of the color rush, then in 2016, so again, the Packers didn't wear a color rush, they wore all whites. They played the Bears, and they won in 2016. In 2017, they played the Bears again in the all-white unis, which was also a win. They didn't wear them in 2018, and in 2019, against the Lions, they wore all whites again and won again. So they were kind of on a roll. They were 4-1 at this point. And then last Thursday happened against Tennessee, kind of surprised everybody. I don't know if Matt LaFleur and company were trying to exorcise the demons or something. I'm not sure. But for the 6th time in franchise history, they wore their all whites at home and they lost. So now they are 4-2 in all whites, and who knows, we may never see them again because color rush isn't a thing anymore. It's not mandated by the NFL. So it's just kind of up to the teams if they want to use them. I know today's Detroit game, they were wearing their color rush, and theirs are all grays. So it's kind of there's actually a website that's devoted to this, if you can believe this.
I believe it.
Called the Gridiron Uniform Database.
Wow.
So if you want to know what uniforms were worn in what games, you can go to that. And there are teams still using them and like them, and other teams haven't used them in many years and may never again.
As long as the Seahawks never use their color rush again, then I'm fine with that, because that I think that stained all possible uses of color rush jerseys.
It blinded my eyes.
So I am wearing my color rush jersey. So I bought it for one of the previous things. And I did wear it to the game. They asked for a whiteout of the crowd. The crowd did not participate in the whiteout, mostly because it was cold and not that many people have white jerseys. But nonetheless, it was, I was showing my support for the team as it were. I also showed my support for catching mustard during the game. So this is very much a game worn jersey.
That's the thing. I may like a white jersey, but my mule will like it just as much. So that's why I don't have a white jersey. Going back to the 1989 season, though, Jeff, is it wasn't necessarily all whites. I think that I'm pretty sure they wore the yellow pants, gold pants, if you will, for those two
Yeah.
games. And I would say there's some merit to forcing New Orleans in that game to be in their black uniforms, because they would have been on that east side of the stadium
The sunny
sideline.
side. Yeah.
They baked in the sun that day.
Yeah.
The other concept with the Buccaneers trying to get they thought because Vinny Testaverde was colorblind that may have thrown him off a little bit. I don't think there was much merit to that, but definitely the dark jersey there, because remember the game that Green Bay went down to Arizona and the Cardinals decided to wear their whites and they put Green Bay in green, and it was a very hot day in Phoenix, and yeah, the Packers just they melted that day.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting concept. And now, like college too, there's really no precedent for either home or away jerseys or whatever, because we all have color TVs for starters.
Right.
And like I said, the color rush experiment is kind of over. So now but generally, teams for consistency and things like that just kind of settled in, whites on the road, colors at home.
I'm going to go back, though, to soccer, which is a sport that every team has 3 jerseys. They've got a home jersey, they've got an away jersey, and they've got a third kit. And every year they have a new set of jerseys. And I think that this is a brilliant marketing element as far as getting people to buy more and more shirts. So are you wearing this year's shirt, for example? And I certainly could see the NFL moving towards a lot more experimental types of jerseys, specifically for the possibilities in marketing.
Well, the NBA has certainly done that. You've got new jerseys every year in the NBA.
City jerseys and stuff like that. Yeah.
Major League Baseball is getting on that game to sell merchandise. So yeah, definitely the NFL. I think you're going to start seeing more and more alternate jerseys. I think the pushback has been a lot of your traditional teams, specifically Green Bay, not wanting to do that. But I think the time is going to come that's definitely going to change, and as far as white goes, there are some teams that do wear white at home. One of them typically Dallas, but again, keeping a side eye on this Thanksgiving
They're blues
Day game
today. Yeah.
Damn it if I don't like that dark blue with the white shoulder pads and the white helmets for Dallas. As much as I just do not like the Dallas Cowboys, that blue and white just does something for me.
Need an intervention, John. It's the Los Angeles Chargers powder blues. That's
close enough. Yeah. All right. Well, we've got a lot to be thankful for. It is Thanksgiving Day. We're watching some football. I ate my meal already. I think you guys have your family plans ready to go. Final words on this week, Jeff.
As you mentioned earlier, I'm on the road to recovery here. We've had lots of crazy illness in our family, out of the frying pan into the fire. I think everybody's finally on the mend. Looking forward to a very frenetic upcoming holiday season, and hopefully some good football in there in terms of what's going to happen this coming Sunday night. My expectations are low, but I'll try the reverse jinx again like I did for the Cowboys. I think we're going to get our ass handed to us if they don't come out. If they come out either flat or not just prepared to play, I think Philadelphia is going to sense blood in the water, and they're just going to be like, all right, let's take care of these guys and be done. It may be the last time we see the Packers on a national game. Well, they've got the Monday night game, obviously, against the Rams this season. But, we're getting pretty spoiled about seeing Green Bay on primetime games. And, based on the exit they've laid this year, if something doesn't turn around pretty quickly here, there's a distinct possibility we'll be seeing far less of them on primetime next year.
The Packers are at 4-7. Thankfully, we're in the NFC. And so that means that a 9-8 has a pretty good chance of making the playoffs, 8-9 an outside chance, but we're really sitting on a precipice in that we have to perform against Philadelphia. If we don't win against Philadelphia, I think our odds of making the playoffs are extremely low. But on the other hand, there are enough possibilities when you look at the rating schedule, the fact that the Rams are not as good as you would expect them to be. We play Minnesota, we play the Bears. We've at least got the possibility. And so we've got to go in hoping that this is going to be our chance, that we are going to start one of those runs, run the table kind of thing, because that's really our only chance. And we're either going to see that type of Packers team show up against Philadelphia, or we may be starting to see Jordan Love by the second half of that game. So it's going to be interesting times for Packers fans, no matter what.
I agree with you there. I think the question on that one, Neil, though, is you have to first determine who your starting quarterback next season is going to be. and then determine who's going to probably run out your season here as well. I don't think if the Packers are committed to Love, I don't know that they play him, but that's maybe a conversation for next week. We'll see what happens with the Eagles game. As far as the way this season is winding down, I will say that I really like how the Minnesota Vikings rather epically started their 8-game losing streak to finish the season by taking the 40-3 loss. So yeah, no, I'd like to see them finish 8-9. That, not likely, but it would be a terrifically epic way to fall apart. You've got Kirk in primetime tonight. Let's watch for a collapse there. And if the Cowboys can take it on the chin in a national game here, then I'll be happy as well. Then I won't worry so much about what Green Bay does. No, we want to win Thursday night. We're gonna. Jeff says we're gonna get slaughtered, so we'll get slaughtered to a team in all black Thursday night in Philadelphia. Neil may or may not be there. He is not sure yet. I think he should go.
I think that the odds keep going up, but we shall see.
All right. Well, you guys, I want you to get out of here and enjoy your Thanksgiving day. And those of you paying attention, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. Make sure you leave a comment as well. Remember, that's all free. You can find the GBC podcast at Green Bay Chat. That's all one word, Green Bay Chat. We are on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat. A couple of our reels, the ones in particular are the winning field goal against Dallas, and then a couple of flyovers are very popular in the reels on Instagram. So take a look, give those a like as well. Remember on Facebook at the GBC Podcast Green Bay Chat. And as always, may you fully appreciate the magnitude of your impending good fortune. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.
Good night.